Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Okay, let's get right into it because today we're talking about something that is a really, really big deal for anyone who works with logiBUS. For years, right, connecting your inputs and outputs meant doing this separate manual step called mapping. Well, that's all about to change. We are looking at a future where that step is just gone.
I mean, seriously, let's be real. Have you ever been there? Just digging through some text file, trying to find a tiny typo, all because a button wouldn't work in your visual logic? Yeah. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, you are definitely going to want to stick around for this.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll officially say goodbye to mapping. Then we'll dig into exactly why the old way was kind of frustrating. After that, we'll check out the slick new system, see how it actually works, take a peek into the future, and then, most importantly, I'll show you how you can get your hands on it today.
All right, first things first. The huge idea here is that we are completely moving away from that separate manual mapping file. And look, this isn't just some small tweak. This is a ground-up, foundational change to how the entire logiBUS workflow works. So for as long as I can remember, the process has always had these two parts, right? You build your cool visual logic, and then you have to stop, open a totally separate text file, and manually link everything up to the hardware. Well, that whole idea, it's officially being retired.
Now, to really appreciate just how cool the new system is, you've got to understand the headaches we're leaving behind. So let's break down exactly why that old mapping system was such a pain and created so much friction for everybody. And this wasn't just some small little annoyance. As the source material puts it, the old way was not met with undivided echo, which is a very polite way of saying people really didn't like it. It just wasn't comfortable to use, and it caused some real problems. And what's great about this slide is how it shows you that friction. You'd be in this awesome visual world, right? Dragging and dropping blocks, connecting wires, and then, bam! You had to slam on the brakes, switch over to a plain text editor, and manually type out this long, precise string of text. One wrong character, one forgotten slash, and the whole thing just wouldn't work. This slide just nails the inefficiency. A perfect example was setting up display feedback. You'd tell a block in your logic, hey, you're a soft key. Then you'd have to go into the mapping file and type out the path to, you guessed it, that exact same soft key. You were literally doing the same job twice. It was nuts. And look, the crucial point here is that it wasn't just one thing. The whole system was fragile. If you moved a block, you had to go on a scavenger hunt to update its text path. Forgetting to map a new input or output was a super common way to introduce bugs. And all of it just led to these cluttered projects, where every single exercise needed its own folder with 3 separate files. It was just a mess. Okay, enough complaining about the old way. Let's get to the good stuff, the solution. We're about to see a much cleaner and honestly, a way more intuitive approach to handling all your I/O.
And right away, the first thing you'll notice is this. Just look at the difference. On the left, the old way, total folder chaos. You had to click and dig just to find anything. And on the right, the new way. It is completely flat. You can see every single exercise at a glance. No more digging, it's just clean. So you're probably asking, how is this even possible? Well, the magic is right here in this core idea. Those generic I for input and Q for output blocks, they're gone. They've been replaced by these intelligent, specific blocks that are totally self-contained. They already know what their job is from the moment you create them. Okay, let's pop the hood and really get into this. We're going to take a look at the shift from those old, kind of dumb, generic blocks to these new intelligent objects, because that's the secret sauce that makes this whole mapping-free world a reality. And this slide just says it all, doesn't it? Before, you had these generic X and Q blocks that were totally meaningless without that separate mapping file. Now you have descriptive blocks like a button EX or a logiBUS CX that hold all of their own configuration right inside them, using built-in properties. So what do we mean by a specific block? Well, it's pretty simple. It's just a block where the connection to the physical world is defined by properties inside the block itself. Things like an object ID or an address. And here's the kicker. This means the name you give the block doesn't matter anymore. You could literally call it Hans or Sepp, like they joked about in the source video, and it will still work perfectly because its identity comes from its properties, not its name. And here are just a few quick examples. Now, when you see a button EX block in your logic, you know instantly, okay, that's a button on a display. You see a logiBUS CX block, you know it's a controller input. Your code basically documents itself. You can actually see what's connected to what right there in your logic without ever having to look at another file.
Now, with any big change, there are always going to be some trade-offs, and it's important we talk about those. So let's look at what this new workflow really means for your day-to-day development, including the one thing that's maybe a little less flexible than before. So here's the main trade-off. The blocks aren't quite as generic anymore. For instance, if you decide you want to change an output from being a standard controller output to, say, a data panel output, you can't just swap the block type. You now have to actually go into its properties and also update things like the specific address and the output ID to match that new hardware. But, and this is the brilliant part, that trade-off is actually a massive benefit in disguise. Because the system is stricter now, if you try to make that change but you forget to update the properties, logiBUS will scream at you. It'll flag it as an error right away. It won't even let you compile. It literally prevents a whole class of bugs from ever happening, which is going to save you so much time debugging later.
So, let's bring this all home. What does all of this actually mean for you and your daily workflow? Let's talk about how you can jump in and get started with this right now.
The benefits are pretty clear, and you'll feel them right away. You can finally see your I/O connections right there in your logic. Your project files are going to be way simpler. You'll have far fewer silly errors from typos or just forgetting to map something, and your code will be easier for you and anyone else on your team to read and understand. And you know what the best part is? You don't have to wait for any of this. The very first version with this new system, it's called Alpha 3, is already online as of August 17th, 2025. The updated training project is out there too, so you can download it and start playing around with it on all your devices immediately. So, at the end of the day, this new I/O system is a massive step forward. It makes development more user-friendly, more robust, and it gets rid of a huge source of frustration and bugs. It just lets you focus on your logic. So the only real question left is, are you ready to start building faster and with a whole lot more confidence?